Hey guys, this week on When You Need 'Em, Ask Neadom, we're going to talk about IT Budgeting 101. What do you need to plan for when you're putting your budget together for your business? Do you need $1 million?
$1 million.
Or 10? Not sure. We'll see you real soon. Hey guys, welcome to another week of When You Need 'Em, Ask Neadom. Today is video 1 of our IT budgeting series, and this is going to be an overview video to talk about the things we need to think about when we're putting our IT budget together. I've got 10 different things you really want to kind of think about. There may be more. If there are, let us know in the comments about what you put in your IT budget, and that'll help the whole community out there to help us plan this out. So let's jump right in and take a look at this. The first thing that when everyone thinks of IT is hardware. I mean, we've got computers, we've got servers, we've got switches, we've got routers, we've got wireless access points. Any device or hardware that we have to plug into the network or that we are responsible from an IT perspective is what we're responsible for. Let's say, for example, a POS terminal or maybe even a time clock. Is that IT's responsibility? We need to include that into our IT budget. So hardware, number one thing. So the number two thing we need to take a look at is cloud infrastructure. So now we're getting rid of some of our hardware for some software services in the cloud. Office 365, G Suite, whatever your cloud solution is, Amazon, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, whatever services you're using in the cloud, you want to make sure they're there. Maybe you have a line of business application that's cloud hosted. You want to make sure you're including that in your IT budget. What are the yearly renewals for that? Typically those renewals are a percentage of what you paid for the software. You want to include that into your IT budget. Again, these things add up over time, and so having an Excel spreadsheet of knowing when these things are they due monthly, quarterly, annually, bi-month, when are they due? You want to make sure you have that enlisted in your budget so you know your yearly costs and when they're due. Okay, so the third thing that we've got are services. And so this may be IT services, like you're paying a managed IT company like myself to manage this. Maybe you have a payroll that you have. You want the service to support and manage your IT infrastructure. What are those costs? Again, it may be a different line item in your budget, but you want to make sure for your IT budget you know what those costs are. You also want to take a look at any projects you may have coming up to include that in your services costs for consulting or any sort of project needs you have down the line. So services is the next thing you need to really kind of take a look at. So the fourth thing we want to take a look at is training. How much training are you providing to your IT staff? This is not end user training, because typically end user or user training is not a part of the IT budget. If you do, you want to include that in here. But we're talking about training for your IT staff. Typically, most IT professionals, that budget is about $10,000 per person. That's going to let them keep current. If you're not putting any money aside for this, then you're going to basically, depending on your employee, to then go off and do this on their own, which happens many a times. But if you're not setting a time, this is resource time in the office. This doesn't have to be hard cash out of pocket. You just want to make sure that if you're taking efficiencies into consideration, you're taking a look at that. If you're giving them time off to go do training, or if you're giving them time off to go take a test, you include that in your budget. So training is very important for your staff to make sure they're current on all things. So the fifth thing we want to take a look at is bandwidth. How much internet services do you need coming into your building? Do you need communication to other locations within the world or in your region? Do you need communication to your cloud provider? Bandwidth is a really important thing to really take a look at, because we'll talk about a little bit later about risk, but we want to make sure that you have the right bandwidth in place for the type of needs that you have for your organization. So make sure you set a budget line for bandwidth and what those costs are. Okay, so the sixth thing we take a look at, and I'm going to break this out from hardware a little bit, and we're going to call this lifecycle management or hardware attrition. PCs and computers die. Yes, we have a budget in our system for this, but you want to make sure you know what percentage of your fleet or what percentage of your IT infrastructure is going to be out of service in the middle of the year, the end of the year, the beginning of the year, so you know what your hardware refreshes are that you need to do. So if you've got computers that are over 5 years old, you need to replace them, and you need to be ready to put new ones in. So you need to know that so you know what to budget for in your IT planning, and we typically call that lifecycle management. Number 7 is software and systems for IT management. So if you're running an IT department, you may need software subscriptions or licenses to help run that, maybe some sort of remote management tool, maybe some sort of monitoring RMM tool that you need, a remote monitoring manager to monitor those things to see what's happening. And you're going to want to include that in your budget. And those prices can scale, drastically. They can be based on per engineer, per tech. They can be based on per device or per node. Are you doing security? Do you have any compliance issues you have to make sure? You're running scans. What are the software and systems you have to have in your organization to run your organization yearly? You want to take a look at that as well. So now that we understand the hardware that we have, we want to be able to track that. And this kind of goes a little bit into the last one, software and systems, but sometimes this goes outside of in finance. And so asset management is very important. We want to make sure that we have tracking of all the assets that we have inside of an organization. This is typically more for a financial portion, for amortization of costs, but also we want to keep track of where they are for insurance purposes, who has what device and where they're at. And 9 times out of 10, most of that IT asset information is managed by IT. Sometimes it's managed by somebody else in finance, but again, if you have to manage assets inside your organization, that may be a cost that you have from a labor perspective, along with from a software perspective, or even labels or things like that that you may have to have. So asset management is the next thing. Number 9 is security. Security is becoming more and more relevant in most organizations because the cost of a downtime because of a security issue, from being down just from employees not being able to access information. You want to make sure that you've got the right budget set aside for this in your organization and make sure that you are protected. And this may be in addition to software or hardware that you have, but you're going to want to really break this out so you understand what you're spending on a security perspective. So when we get to the next part, you'll understand more about what you're able to handle. So the last one is more of a subjective conversation. You really need to understand what your risk tolerance is in your organization to really determine what your IT budget needs to be. And I have this conversation so many times with business owners, they really don't know what their risk tolerance is. And what is risk tolerance, right? So again, in simplest form, risk tolerance is what risk are you able to handle within inside your organization to still continue to do business? Are you, low risk tolerant, meaning you can't have a lot of risk? Or are you very high risk tolerant? You can take on a lot of risk and not be down. Well guys, that sums up another week of When You Need 'Em, Ask Neadom. We talked today about IT Budgeting 101 and we looked at the 10 things that you need to be prepared for when you're putting your IT budget together. We're going to go over more in some other videos, so check out those in the show notes below and we'll see you next time. You guys be safe out there. See you then.